Hello, everybody. I'm Paul Modley. I am the chair of the Social Mobility Leaders Forum. And welcome to the first in our series of Get to Know Our Members calls. During these calls, we will be spending some time with our members. And today, I'm delighted to be joined by Jo, Vicky and Ollie. Welcome, everybody.
Hi.
Oh,
Hi, welcome.
Right, so firstly, I wonder if we could just do some brief intros, and I'll go in order of the screen. Jo, if I could come to you first.
sure. Thanks, Paul. I'm Jo White. I'm the founder of Red Lotus Consultancy, a specialist consultancy focusing on helping employers with their social mobility strategy.
Thank you, Jo. Vicky?
Hi, I'm Vicky Hopkins, and I'm the social mobility lead at Phoenix Group.
Excellent. Thank you, Vicky. And then lastly, Ollie.
Hi, I'm Ollie Pepiat. I work for PA Consulting. My day job is as a managing consultant in our public services team, but I also have the privilege of chairing our social mobility network and leading our annual work experience program called Springboard.
Thank you very much. Right, we've got a series of questions which we are going to run through, and I'm going to ask each of the panelists the same question. So Jo, I'm going to come to you first. First question, can you share one or two things, or one or two ways in which your organisation is actively supporting social mobility?
Yeah, of course. So my firm is a dedicated firm for social mobility, and there's kind of three core services that we offer. And that's keynotes and workshops where I share my own social mobility journey and some kind of top tips on what employers can do to be more inclusive for their colleagues that come from low-income backgrounds. I also do business-to-business consultancy, so helping organisations with their strategy right through to execution. And then the final thing that we do is a 12-month leadership accelerator programme that takes people from low-income backgrounds and accelerates them into leadership roles over the course of 12 months.
Thank you, Jo. Vicky, coming to you next. Tell us what's going on at Phoenix. What are you doing at Phoenix?
So we're working internally and externally, really. So if I look at what we're doing internally, so we're looking at data collection. We're looking to see what is our representation of people from all socioeconomic backgrounds within the business. Yeah. So that we can then identify what are some of do we have any barriers to progression? What are those barriers? Yeah. And how can we minimise any of those barriers? Externally, then we've launched a Future in Finance platform, and this is a platform that provides sort of open access to anybody from any background, and it gives access to things like mentoring from individuals within our business, career insights, so people can see, what types of careers do we have within financial services, and then they can connect up with people that are in those careers. What development opportunities there are in financial services, and they can just get a bit of insight if they don't know anybody within our business, our sector, then it gives them that insight and it starts to build their network. We then measuring ourselves using the Social Mobility Index. So a lot of then our current actions and our strategy is built from the feedback. And the last 2 years we've been in the top 20 for the Social Mobility Index.
Amazing, congratulations. You're obviously doing some brilliant work there, so well done, thank you. And Ollie, over to you from a PA consulting perspective.
Yeah, thanks. And I'll follow Vicky's theme there of just touching on one internally and one externally in terms of what we're doing. So externally, we formed the PA Foundation in 2021. So it's our charitable arm and has distributed more than £5 million of funding to charities with a real focus on social mobility. And it also our PA in the community work, which provides over 10,000 hours a year of volunteer time from PA staff supporting those charitable endeavours. They're all focused on expanding access to quality education, skills and careers for young people from disadvantaged backgrounds, seeking to help them become the innovators and leaders of tomorrow. I touched on in my introduction our annual Springboard programme, which is part of that. And each year we welcome 50 young people from across the UK to our head office to gain meaningful work experience by tackling real client consulting challenges. Internally, and this is much newer, we set up our social mobility network and launched it in 2024. So I'm the inaugural chair of that, and our initial priorities have been introducing a range of support for our newest colleagues with socially mobile backgrounds. So we've set up a program to help them flourish in their consulting careers and at PA, including a range of capability building workshops for apprentices and some of our early careers hires.
Excellent, thank you, Ollie. Brilliant, really, really interesting to hear what you're all doing in your own organisations to drive social mobility. I guess the next question then, and Joe, will come to you. What is it that personally motivates you to drive what you're doing around social mobility?
So for me, it's my lived experience. So I come from a low income background, had a single parent, grew up on a council estate, and I've had incredible opportunities through my banking career to be socially mobile. And so I've spent the last 5 years working within the banking sector to drive social mobility. And I've seen through my own experience, but also through others' experience, that the impact, the positive impact that this work can have on lives, on communities, on businesses, is hugely important, right? Because there is talent everywhere in the UK, but the opportunities just don't exist. And for me, I think it's such a shame to see talented people that just lack having access to sponsors, to mentors, to opportunities to unlock their true potential. And obviously we know from the data and the research as well in terms of how impactful this can be for the economy from a GDP perspective. So super passionate.
Yeah, brilliant, and we can all see that. Thank you, Joe. Vicky, what drives you around social mobility?
So I think a lot of it comes from my career in leadership development. So a lot of the work really showed me how often potential is overlooked when somebody's background doesn't fit that sort of traditional expectation, and how transformational it is really when that potential is unlocked and it's supported and it's recognised. So I think my view is around, if we can widen the gate to all talent, then that's both a corporate responsibility but also a real business advantage. So we've seen it within the business. So personally, through the coaching work that I've done, I've seen people grow in confidence, step into roles that maybe they weren't expected to step into, and also maybe themselves didn't see themselves stepping into. And it changes the direction of their career, and it can be immensely beneficial to them as an individual and give us that huge business advantage. And I think that's really what inspires me.
Yeah, absolutely. Ollie, what drives you around this topic?
Yeah, so I think beyond it being the right thing to do, there are two kind of main reasons that personally motivate me to champion social mobility. So the first, and colleagues have touched on it already, but my own background. So recognising that how lucky I've been really to shape the career I have, coming from a working class family with no history of anyone really having ever considered going to university or aspiring to the sort of career that I've been fortunate to have, and kind of wanting to enable other people to go on that journey as well, and recognising that it's possible. And secondly, is that I was previously a primary school teacher in an underprivileged community, and unfortunately, one of my biggest takeaways from the few years I spent there was the challenge and the lack of career aspirations that some of the children had, even at the age of 7. So I was teaching year 4, and I remember asking them on my first day what they wanted to be when they were older, and I was really expecting those responses of kind of spaceman, footballer, actor, all that cool stuff that the kids should be able to aspire to. But genuinely, the responses I got were, one child told me he wanted to be a bin man, another said working at the pub, and another told me they wanted to be a shop assistant, and another one told me they weren't going to get a job because their mum never had and they told them they didn't need one. And whilst there's nothing wrong with some of those careers or those jobs, their ambitions were already so limited at such a young age by what they could see in their communities. And I remember thinking how challenging it was going to be to address that as a teacher. And I think there's so much more everyone in society can play alongside that. So from that day, I wanted to help them and others to truly believe that their opportunities aren't limited and they can become whatever they want to be.
That's so spot on, and we hear that time and time again, don't we? Thank you for bringing that to life for us. We, as a forum, are growing quite significantly. I think we're almost at 100 members right now, and we've had a lot of new members joining in the last couple of months in particular. So going around again, if a member wanted to come to you for some advice or ideas, Jo, I'll start with you. What should they come to you for?
Mix this up, Paul, because Vicky and Ollie are giving such good responses. I feel like I need to refine mine to match theirs. I would say I really focus on the kind of the end-to-end of the employee life cycle, through to data collection, through to right up to leadership development for people that come from low-income backgrounds. So anything really that focuses on that inclusion piece of existing colleagues. I think there's a huge amount of organisations out there that focus on outreach, that focus on early careers and entry into organisations. I'm really focused on that progression piece in terms of how do you take somebody that's already in an organisation and help them progress, because we know that getting into an organisation is really challenging, but getting on in an organisation can be even more challenging than getting in. And so I really focus on that second part in terms of progression.
Yeah, I think that's really important. I think you're right. So many organisations focus in on that getting in, but so few really think about the progression. So that's really helpful. Vicky, what should members come to you about? It sounds like you're doing an awful lot at Phoenix, but what can they come to you for?
So I suppose thinking about this, if anybody perhaps doesn't have that social mobility strategy and is looking at the business case and how do you get stakeholders really interested and involved in helping support that business case and that strategy. So designing and implementing a social mobility strategy, maybe engaging colleagues through a champions network. So we needed to do that to really to drive the grassroots change, I suppose, throughout the business, because recognise that from us just talking about it sort of centrally in the DEI team, that really wasn't going to get the change. We needed these champions across the business that get involved in the volunteering, so that they can see we get 3 volunteering days a year to use within Phoenix Group, and if we can get people involved in that volunteering, then they get that personal reaction. They can see the impact that they're having. It has a real link to engagement of our teams, and then they also think about other things that they can do, so it widens maybe an individual's network. And then developing outreach initiatives, so that might be early careers engagement, but just anything that will widen access to careers. The other thing I did think was the Social Mobility Index. It's our 3rd year now of being in the index, so can advise a little bit on applying for the index if anybody is looking at that.
There's a lot involved in that. I know personally, having been in it for 3 years as well, there's an awful lot involved. So I'm sure a lot of people have questions around that. Ollie, what should members come to you for?
Yeah, so I'd like to think there's 3 things that I can probably be most helpful on. So the first is delivering meaningful work experience. So about 8 years ago, when I first joined, I helped to set up our annual work experience program called Springboard, actually jointly with one of the Social Mobility Leaders Forum board members, Felicity Halstead, who worked with us at the time and is now of Good Work. And I've been running that ever since. And I think we're really proud of the fact that delivers properly meaningful work experience. So we give the young people who participate, who come from all over the country. So that was our first big win, was expanding outside of people on our doorstep and welcoming people from rural and coastal communities, for example. But we give them the opportunity to take on a real client problem, and they meet real consulting clients and they present back to them. And so often we hear that that's the most valuable bit, because compared to other work experience they do, they're genuinely sat watching and shadowing or doing admin, and it's not proper experience and exposure to the sort of thing they might want to do in the future. The second would just be anyone interested in that kind of interface or relationship between kind of corporate organisations and charities. So we've built some really effective relationships with some of our charitable partners, so the Social Mobility Foundation, Career Ready, many others, and I've been involved in managing a few of those relationships, so I think some insight on that. And then thirdly, having been through it very recently, and there will be others who've got far more experience, but I've got a recent experience of setting up our social mobility network and some of the challenges involved in that. And it's been great to already be involved with some other members on starting to think about how we might pull together a sort of toolkit to help organisations thinking about that.
Excellent, thank you. So a wide range of areas where members can call on the three of you for support and advice. Thank you for bringing that to life. That brings us to our last question. Jo, we'll come to you first. What do you hope to gain from being a member of the Social Mobility Leaders Forum?
For me, it's that real kind of shared commitment to driving systemic change in the UK, building those really strong connections as well. This work's so important, and we're going to achieve so much more collaboratively than what we can do individually as people or as organisations. And I think it's that coming together to drive that really large-scale systemic change that has long-term impacts for individuals, for companies, for the economy, and ultimately for the future generations. You know, I want my kids to grow up in a fair society, and this plays a huge part in that.
Thank you for summarising that. It's spot on. Vicky?
Having heard from this group today, it really explains what I'm looking to get out of this, and it's about hearing from other leaders that are as passionate about creating change as I am, and hearing about what's worked and maybe what hasn't worked as well, what have been the challenges, so that we can learn from all of that work together. I just hope that we can amplify our impact. So that's the thing, and really promote this inclusive approach to social mobility that recognises how it intersects with other underrepresented areas. I think that's really important, that all of the work that we do within social mobility, we are also tracking the impact that has on other areas such as race, ethnicity, gender, disability, neurodiversity, and people with caring responsibilities. So yeah, amplifying that work and showing how powerful this work can be.
Thank you, Vicky. And Ollie, as one of our newer members, what are you hoping to gain from the forum?
Yeah, so I think colleagues have already mentioned it, but I think that network and that peer-to-peer kind of shared experience will be really valuable. And just to kind of bring that to life, I think I've actually found two very helpful allies in this call today, in the sense that you'll have got hopefully a view that we have real strengths around what we do in our outreach and in our in some of our external work, but some of the work we're doing internally is more of in its infancy, and we have an opportunity at PA to do a lot more. And Jo's already referenced her kind of expertise around progression and kind of retention, and I think that's an area where we can do more. So hearing from her on that, and we are obviously awaiting the outcome, but we submitted to the Social Mobility Index for the first time this year. So I'm sure we will get some helpful feedback, and then colleagues like Vicky, who've been through that a number of times, might be a good place to turn. So I've already seen the benefits of it just in this conversation.
Excellent. Well, that brings us to the end of our conversation. I have to say, I've loved talking to the three of you. Having spent time with you individually, there's always something about kind of bringing a group together. You get way more out of the conversation. I've learned a lot more about you as individuals, how you're kind of driving social mobility change in your organisations. Thank you for spending time with me this afternoon, and I'm sure our members across the forum will really appreciate listening into this video. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Lovely to see you.